All rise, veuillez vous lever. The International Criminal Court is now in session. L'audience de la Cour pénale internationale est ouverte. Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Thank you very much. The court officer, please announce the case.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Good morning, Mr. President. Situation in the Republic of Kenya in the case the prosecutor versus William Samoei Ruto and Joshua Arap Sang, case number ICC 0109-0111. We are in open session, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Appearances?
The same, Your Honour, for the prosecution.
The same for Mr. Ruto defense, Mr. President.
The same for Mr. Sang's defense, Mr. President.
Orчлон Narendse co-victims. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We were forced to start an hour late today because of a very bad traffic situation in the city that affected the proceedings from starting. The witness couldn't be brought on time. Even I was stuck in traffic myself for a long time. But we're starting now. But we have to make time. We are rescheduling today's sitting times as follows. We're starting now at 10:30. We will go until 12. And then we will break for 1 hour and return at 1 o'clock and go until 2:30, and then come back at 3. That's a 30-minute break. We'll come back at 3 and continue until 4:30. Prosecutor, this is a time that every one of those occasions, rather, when everyone must chip in. So hopefully, because of this situation, you will also bend over backwards to complete this witness's testimony, as you had indicated before, hopefully by lunchtime still.
I'll do my best, Your Honour.
Thank you very much. Witness, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. Ms. Renton will continue examination in chief of you. Thank you. We're now in open session. We remain in open session?
Yes, for the moment, Your Honour.
All right. Let's proceed.
Good morning, witness. Yesterday you started telling us about the attack in Yamumbi yesterday afternoon. I'll be continuing to ask you some questions about that this morning, and I'd like to ask you to listen to my questions very carefully and answer the questions that you hear. It's very important, since we don't have a lot of time, in order to concentrate on the evidence that will assist the judges in the best way to make their decision. It may be that we're not able to elicit everything, but I promise that I will ask questions that are appropriate. So I can ask that you listen very carefully. It's also important if you can answer shortly to assist the interpreters, because if you speak for a very long amount of time, it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to interpret. Do you understand? Is that okay?
Yeah. Witness, yes, I do understand you.
Ms. Renton, in that regard, you also will be on duty. You'll need to assist him. You'll know when to move in and tell him to stop, you've had enough, and then begin again for the next batch of information he may be wanting to give.
Yes, I'll do that, Your Honour. Thank you. Witness, yesterday you were speaking about the Nandis that arrived, and you said they arrived there they arrived on the banks of the river. How did they arrive?
Ndio.
Yes.
My question is, how did they get to that place? Could you observe that?
Hapo walifika kwa mguu, waliwekwa na gari mbali, ng'ambo ya kwao.
Answer. They arrived on foot. The vehicles had dropped them off a little further away, and then they continued to the location on foot.
What were the vehicles?
Magari iliyokuwa imewabeba ilikuwa malori, aina ya lori.
Answer. They came in lorries.
How many lorries were there?
Zilikuwa ni lori nyingi kama 10. Zilikuwa kwa mbali kidogo.
Answer. There were approximately 10 in number. The lorries were parked a little further afield in comparison to where I was. I could see that their headlights were on.
What direction had the lorries come from? Did you see that?
Ng'ambo ya Capleton.
Answer. They came from Capteldon.
Can you describe the lorries for us?
Ndio.
Answer. Yes, I can. These were large lorries.
Were they, for example, closed or were they open at the back?
Zilikuwa ziko wazi.
Answer. They were open lorries.
Who did the lorries belong to? Do you know?
Lori sikujua mwenye malori ni nani.
Answer. I was not in a position to know who they belonged to.
Did you find out later who they belonged to?
Ndio, nilisikia lori.
Answer. Yes. I heard that the lorries belonged to some rich individuals. And I heard that one of the rich individuals who was a proprietor of these lorries was Mr. Mayo.
Who did you hear this from? And if necessary, please refer to the list in front of you and refer to that person's number.
Mr. President, we have allowed this line of questioning to continue for a while, but by suggesting to the witness that you can refer to the list in front of you seems to suggest that the person's name is in that list, and that would be leading in our view.
would it have made a difference if she had said, because we're in open session, if the name is in the list, you can refer to it? Wouldn't have been the alternative question she could have asked?
I mean, I understand the predicament of counsel opposite, because we need to be very cautious to ensure that protected information does not go out. But I also do think that if the witness is informed very much in advance that he has to be careful not to mention names of individuals on the list, then that is a warning that the witness would bear in mind. But if at any time a question is asked which elicits information about a person on the list, you direct the witness's mind to the list, it's quite glaringly leading to the extent that it tells the witness that the information being sought is contained in that list. But I mean, I think there is a way it could be done to the extent that the witness would not be informed that the information is on the list.
What is that way?
I had suggested it earlier. Each time we go to public session, the witness is reminded again.
All right, objection is overruled. Ms. Renton, next time you can say, if the name is on the list, refer to it. This is a list that has 19 names on it. Proceed.
I'm guided, Your Honour. Thank you. Mr. Witness, my question was who you heard from that Mayo owned some of the lorries, and if the name is on the list, you may refer to it.
Nambari moja.
Answer. It is number 1 on the list.
Just to make something else clear on the last point so that it is understood, Counsel, Mr. Fowle, we also need to bear in mind that permission to ask leading questions in examination in chief is largely a matter of discretion for the chamber.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Witness, could you tell us about Mr. Mayo? Are you able to inform the court anything about this person?
Ndio.
The witness, yes, I can.
Please go on.
Nakumbuka wakati kulikuwa na uvamizi.
Answer. I remember that when the attack was launched, I saw these stolen cows with my very own eyes being taken to Mr. Mayo's place. And it was the police officers who were actually escorting the cows. The cows had come from Yamumbi. I was an eyewitness to this event.
Where does Mr. Mayo live?
Bwana Mayo anaishi mpakani wa Yamumbi.
Answer. Mr. Mayo lives up the hill at the confines of Yamumbi, and his farm is adjacent to Yamumbi locality.
Mr. Witness, sorry, my mistake. Was that in 2007 or are you talking about today?
Naeleza mambo 2007.
Answer. I'm talking about the events that occurred in 2007.
Thank you. Does Mr. Mayo still live in that location?
Kwa sasa Bwana Mayo nafikiri ameaga.
Answer. I believe that Mr. Mayo moved, but his residence is located at the same place.
Mr. President, with your
Swahili interpreter is correcting what he just said. Correction. I believe that Mr. Mayo is deceased.
When did Mr. Mayo pass away?
Bwana Mayo
Answer. Mr. Mayo died after the end of the conflict.
What, if any, was Mr. Mayo's relationship with Mr. Ruto?
Bwana Mayo kama vile nilivyosema.
Answer. As I said previously, Mr. Mayo was a rich individual. He was one of the rich people in the area. And every time that a meeting was held, Mr. Mayo would be in attendance.
Witness, could I ask you to listen very carefully to my question? What, if any, relationship did Mr. Mayo have with Mr. Ruto? If you're not sure, please just say, I don't know. But if you do know, please tell us.
And also, Counsel, the also interpretation, we need to be careful as well, because the witness is not hearing your question directly. Let's keep that in mind, okay? Questions are being interpreted. So both the witness and interpretation, we have to be careful. Thanks.
Mr. Witness, my question is, was there any relationship between Mr. Mayo and Mr. Ruto? You've told us that perhaps they attended the same meetings. Do you know if they had a relationship apart from that?
Ndio.
Answer. Yes.
Please tell us.
Ni kwa sababu kama yale mambo yalikuwa yakitokea wakati wa vita.
Answer. At the time of the events that unfolded, the cows were sent to Mayo's residence, And I heard that the policemen sent to his residence were sent by Mr. Ruto with the intention of protecting his farm and his residence.
Mr. Witness, I'll now move on from that and ask you what you observed.
Nous sommes en audience publique, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, we are in public session.
Thank you very much. Council Chiefs referred to the list already and mentioned number 6. Can you continue?
Yes, Your Honour. Witness, what was person number 6 doing?
Huyo mtu ni jirani.
Number 6 is a neighbor. When my house was torched, he told me that I was a lucky man, that I was going to be eliminated, and he called me by my name.
How did you recognize person number 6 during the time that your house was burning?
Huyo mtu nilimtambua kwa sauti yake.
Answer: I recognized him by his voice and by his name as well. He had been called upon by the others because he was very familiar with the area. They called him out in the Nandi language by his name, and he was asked, what location should we go to now? And that is how I was able to recognize him.
Did you recognize anyone else apart from person number 6?
Ndiyo.
Answer: yes.
Would you please tell us the name of that person? If the person is on the list, refer to the list.
Hayo majina wengine hayako kwa list.
Answer: the names of the other persons do not appear on that list.
Your Honour, just to err on the side of caution, maybe move into private session.
Private session then.
Nous sommes en audience publique, monsieur.
We are in public session, Mr. President.
Proceed, Ms. Swetton.
Witness, apart from the small bottles, were they carrying anything else?
Ndio.
Yes.
Walikuwa na mapanga?
They were carrying machetes and arrows. They also had some small axes. They had some sticks or clubs with pointed heads on both ends. They used those clubs to attack. They would throw those clubs or sticks at people, which would then wound them. And in addition to those clubs, they also had arrows, which they used.
Witness, what time of the day did this happen?
Wakati wa kwanza ilikuwa kitu saa 2 ya usiku.
Answer. The first time, it was at 8 p.m., 20 hours.
You've told us you were hiding and it was in the evening. How were you able to observe all of this?
Nilisema tulikuwa na habari kwamba kungetokea mabaya.
Answer. This is what I said. We had learned that some bad thing was going to happen, and we therefore decided to leave our wives and our children at home, and we went to the hill to find out if anything was or had happened. That is how we came to see houses being burnt down, and so we asked the people to leave because the situation was getting worse.
When you returned to your house, and you've told us you were hiding, it was the evening time, from what I understand. How could you see the people and what they were doing?
Nasema nilipofungua gate ya kwangu.
Answer. This is what I said. When I opened the gate of my house, my wife and children went out. But before we could go too far, my house was already on fire. Now, from that time on, my wife and my children went to the forest while I remained near my house. I was able to see my house burn down.
Mulikuwa na stima.
The whole house was alight. It was on fire, but they could not see me. There was fire and the flames that came up were such that I was able to see them from my place of hiding. I remained there until the house was entirely burnt down, and then they left.
Witness, you've told us that they were divided into groups. Who was dividing them into these groups?
Nasema majirani waliokuwa karibu na shamba la.
Answer. What I said is that these people were neighbors who had farms. They are the ones who did it.
How many houses were burned on that night?
Huo usiku hawakuunguza nyumba nyingi sana.
So, on that night, they did not burn down many houses. The next day, they did something different. But on that particular night, I would say they burnt down about 10 houses.
What was the ethnicity of the owners of these houses?
Nyumba za Wakikuyu ndizo zilichomwa.
Answer. The houses that were burnt down were owned by Kikuyus.
Witness, you've told us the next day they did something different. What did they do?
Kesho yake asubuhi walikuja.
Answer. The next day in the morning, they came to finish off the work, namely to burn down the houses one after the other. And as I said previously, in our village, everybody had a piece of land of about 4 acres. Therefore, buildings were rather close to each other. You see, in our area, we have villages. And the closed village the closed villages are known as Emok. The witness mentions a name which the interpreters did not get. And the other village is at the border. So that is why I said that they were divided into groups. And I was able to observe that during the day. The largest group or larger group went to Cap Seret. Another group went to Lemok, and the third group went to Gitwe.
Hungejua ni wapi ama ni wapi, kwa sababu
It was difficult for me to distinguish between the groups. At that time, the entire area was on fire. There was smoke everywhere. And I was also able to observe that some killings had taken place at that time as well.
I'll ask you about the killings very shortly. How many houses were burnt on that day?
Zilichomwa nyumba karibu 300.
Answer, I would say that about 300 houses were burnt down, and it was on the next day. I'm referring to the next day, rather.
Witness, who was killed?
Pana mzee mmoja aliuawa nikiwa hapo.
Answer, an old man was killed. I saw it with my own eyes. I was there.
If the name is on the list, please refer to it.
Ndio. Namba 8.
Yes, number 9. Rather, number 8. The interpreter corrects.
Your Honour, I just note there appears to be an interpretation or transcription error on line 6. I may just clarify that with the witness. I understood it was, he said it was on the next day. It says it was object the next day, but perhaps I can clarify.
Please proceed.
Witness, I'll just go back to an earlier answer that you gave us. I asked you how many houses were burnt, and your answer is, I would say that about 300 houses were burnt down, and it was, the transcript reads, it was object the next day. I'm referring to the next day, rather. Can you just clarify exactly what you said?
Ndio.
Witness, yes. This is what I said. When my house was burnt down, that night, about 10 houses were burnt down. Then, the next day in the morning, they came back and continued to burn down many more houses, about 300 houses. They were broken up into groups. They went to Kapagat, to Gitwe, and to Lemok. They were in groups during the day.
Thank you, witness. Please tell us what happened to person number 8.
Ndio.
Yes.
Huyu mtu namba ya 8 anaishi.
The person at number 8 used to live in Cap Target. It is a village. When the houses were being burnt down, people from my area tried to put out the fires. So they came to try to put out the fires from the houses that had been torched. That old man was trying to do the same thing. And it is then that the attackers who were nearby tried to drive him away. Those of us who were on the other side saw him and tried to help him, but the attackers were many in number. They saw him and then they attacked him and they chopped him up into small pieces using a machete or using machetes. We were there and they continued to do their work. Now, any Kikuyu who attempted to take a gun away from them was killed, was going to be killed, would have been killed by the soldiers because they had a plan. They had a plan. I was there and I saw with my own eyes, I was a witness when that old man was killed.
What was the ethnicity of person number 8?
Kikuyu.
Answer, he was Kikuyu.
You've told us that any Kikuyu who attempted to take a gun away from them was going to be killed. Were they carrying guns?
Nataka niseme wakati kulitoka.
Answer, this is what I have to say. When the war broke out, even the young Kikuyus took up weapons, such as machetes. Why? You see, it was not the Kikuyus who attacked the Nandis. They were attacked in their homes. That is why young Kikuyus decided to arm themselves with machetes, but they could not do anything against the vast numbers of attackers. And you may want to know that the soldiers were supporting or were on the side of the attackers. And I'm speaking about things which I witnessed myself.
Witness, who were carrying the guns? Was it the Nandis or the soldiers or someone else?
Nasema Wanandi walikuwa na silaha.
Answer, this is what I said. The Nandis had guns. Usually, policemen also carry guns, and they would not be bearing weapons such as machetes ordinarily.
Witness, did you witness anyone else being killed apart from person number 8?
Ndio.
The witness, yes.
namba 10.
Person number 10.
Please tell us what happened to person number 10.
Namba ya 10. Wakati uvamizi ulijaa huko.
Answer. During the attack, the person at number 10 was uphill. He was not at the border. He owned a big building, an expensive building, house. As I had said earlier, during the attack, anyone who had money could buy his way from the police in order to enjoy his own safety and security. So the person at number 10, well, I cannot tell you what he had given to the police officers, but he was coming from town with some police people so that the police people could help him recover his property from his house.
To him.
Walikuja na polisi mpaka kwake.
Answer. So he came with the policemen to his house. We actually saw the police vehicle and followed the event to find out what was happening. When that person got to his house with the policemen, the attackers were already there, and this happened during the day. He was cut in the presence of the policemen, and taken away by a driver in a very poor state. He had been cut into pieces and his intestines were spewing out. He was disemboweled and in an unrecognizable state. By the time the driver got him to the hospital, it was too late. He could not be saved. He died.
Who specifically attacked him?
Ni group ya Wanandi.
He was attacked by a group of Nandis.
What was the ethnicity of person number 10?
Mukikuyu.
Was a Kikuyu.
What was the ethnicity of the police?
Kabila ya askari Sikujua kama kulikuwa na kabila lingine, lakini.
Answer. Well, I do not know of what ethnic origin the policemen were, but I did hear two of them speaking in the Nandi language, because I do know the Nandi language myself.
Witness, how far away were you when this happened?
Kama vile nilikuwa nimesema hapo mbeleni.
Answer. As I told you previously, the assailants came to our farm and we could not escape. We went to a specific location where the arrows could not reach us, were they to be shot at us. But that wasn't very far afield. It was at a distance where you could not be reached by an arrow, but we could hear them speaking.
Witness, when did this happen? Can you give us a date, or can you give us a day in relation to when the violence first started?
Answer. I did not quite grasp your question, Counsel.
Witness, my question was, when did this happen, the death of person number 10? How many days after the announcement of the election results did it take place?
Nasema wakati huyu nambari 10 aliuawa.
Answer. When person number 10 on the list was killed, well, it was during the war itself. I cannot recall the precise date, but he was at Yamumbi farm, and Yamumbi farm was on fire, and this went on for 4 days.
Witness, you've told us that this went on for 4 days. It started the evening of the announcement of the election results. Was it the next day, the day after that, or the day after that? If you don't remember, that's fine, but if you can tell us, that would be helpful.
Ingawaje siwezi kumbuka sana, lakini nafikiri ni mwanzo tukielekea mwezi.
Answer. I cannot recall, but I believe that it was approximately the 30th or the 31st of December. It was on the eve of the new year.
Witness, did you see the police at any other point in time during the violence, apart from when you saw them with person number 10?
Ndiyo.
So yes.
Please tell us.
Askari walikuwa kama kawaida. Sisemi kwamba vita.
Answer. We would see policemen on a daily basis. We did not only see them during the conflict, we saw them every day.
Concentrating on the days of the conflict, how are the police reacting to the situation?
Nilivyosema hapo mbele.
Answer. As I said, when there is strife, when conflict breaks out and houses are burnt down, well, the young Kikuyus would try and defend themselves. As for the police reaction, the police officers went to the location where the Nandis and Kikuyus were fighting, and they shot into the air.
Nao wavamizi walikuwa
The assailants understood what was going on. They understood why they were shooting in mid-air. This was to enable the Kikuyus to take flight and allow the assailants to set the houses alight. When the policemen noted that houses were being burnt down, they then moved away to another location.
Did you speak with any of the police during the conflict?
Ndiyo.
Answer, yes.
Please tell us.
Kuna askari nilikuwa nikiwaita. Nawaambia namna gani mambo iko na gani.
On occasion, I would call a policeman and ask what was going on. I was in the habit of talking to the policeman after all, and they told me that we had requested for work to continue.
Who do you mean when you say we had requested for work to continue?
Namaanisha wakati wa kampeni ya Kibaki.
Answer. I am referring to the election campaign during which Kibaki said that were he to be elected, he would move things forward.
When the police said we had requested for work to continue, which people were the police referring to?
Answer. We were referring to the Kikuyu.
Witness, you've told us the violence lasted for 4 days. What can you tell the court about the damage to property that occurred during this time?
Correction from the English booth. He was referring to the Kikuyu.
Ndio. Vitu vingi vilichomwa.
Answer. Yes. A number of things were burnt. And there were also burglaries. Those who were not able to burgle or to loot came back later in order to remove the sheet roofing that had been burnt, in addition to some equipment that had remained behind intact. And, what is more, some Nandis rebuilt their houses with galvanized iron roofing, galvanized iron sheets that had been burnt previously.
Witness, how do you know this? Did you see this yourself?
Hayo ninayoyasema ni yale niliona.
Answer. Well, I was an eyewitness to all of this.
Counsel, can we get that point of that last bit of testimony clear? That some Nandis rebuild their houses with galvanized iron roofing, or rather galvanized iron sheets that had been burned previously. Was that what the witness meant to say?
I believe so, Your Honour, but I can ask the witness again if that's what he meant. Witness, can I just confirm, you've told us that the Nandis rebuilt their own houses with galvanized iron sheets that had been burnt during the conflict? Is that what you said?
Hivyo ndivyo nimesema.
Answer. Yes, that is what I said.
Who did the iron sheets belong to previously?
Manyumba ilipochomeka. Na vitu
So, when the houses were burnt down, with all of their contents, some of the proprietors fled to Nyeri and some to Bamboo. So I am not in a position to know who these roofing sheets belonged to. However, after the conflict, I saw that some houses had been built using the roofing sheets that had been taken away from the burnt down ruins, or recovered from the burnt down ruins. What is more, some people tried to paint them, but it was still visible.
What was the ethnicity of the people whose houses were burnt down where the iron sheets were taken from?
Kama vile nilivyosema hapo mwanzo.
Answer. As I said at the outset, the houses that were burned down belonged to the Kikuyus.
Witness, what happened with the people in Yamumbi? Where were they during the conflict?
Wakati wa uvamizi. Wakati wa usiku, wengi walilala msituni.
Answer. During the conflict, most of the residents of Yamumbe would spend the night in the forest, and on the next day they would go to churches, and some of them went to the police station.
Did you ever go to the police station?
Ndio.
So yes.
When was this? Can you tell us which day?
Siku yenyewe sizijua, lakini nilienda.
Answer. I cannot recall the date, but I did go there, and I noted that there were other individuals present at the police station. They were standing outside of the police station offices.
How many people were there?
Station ya polisi kulikuwa na watu wengi zaidi.
Answer. There were many people at the police station. In fact, when people heard that Kiyamba Church had been burnt down, those who lived in the area began to flee, and they made their way towards the police station. At the police station, I came across many individuals.
What was the ethnicity of the people that were at the police station?
Police station kulikuwa na mchanganyiko wa watu. Kwa sababu kuna
Answer. At the police station, there were people of all ethnic origins. In fact, there is a location called Langas at the confines of Yamumbi. And that is where people of a variety of ethnic origins live. When those inhabitants heard that the situation was deteriorating, many of them sought refuge at the church.
When you were at the police station, what was the ethnicity of the people there? Can you tell us some of the ethnic groups that you know that were there?
Ndio.
Yes.
Please tell us.
Police station. Wakikuyu ndio walikuwa wengi.
Answer. Well, the Kikuyu were the majority at the police station. There were also some Luya present. There were some Kisi. And a small group of Nandis who lived in Langas.
Witness, you've told us about person number 8 and person number 10 that were killed. Do you know of anyone that was injured during the conflict in Yamumbi?
Ndio.
So yes.
Please tell us.
Namba 9 pia aliuawa.
Answer. Number 9 on the list was also killed.
How was person number 9 killed?
Wavamizi walipokuja, alikuwa akijaribu kutoroka.
Answer. When the assailants arrived, he attempted to flee.
Watu walikuwa wakiruka sengenge na kutoroka wakielekea upande wake.
People were jumping over the barbed wire and attempted to flee in order to make their way towards Langas, or that area.
What was the ethnicity of person number 9?
Alikuwa Mgikuyu.
So he was a Kikuyu.
You've told us that he attempted to flee from the assailants. What happened to him? How was he killed?
Walikuwa na watu wengine pamoja na yeye. Akashikwa na sengenge kwa nguo.
Answer. He was in the company of other individuals. His clothing became entangled in the barbed wire, and the attackers then caught hold of him. That was during the day. He was then cut into pieces and died instantly.
Which day of the violence did this happen?
Nikifikiri kidogo, kama sio siku ya pili, ni ya tatu.
Answer. Well, I'm thinking about it carefully. It's either the second or the third day.
Was anyone else killed or injured that you know of?
Ndiyo.
Answer yes.
Namba 11.
Number 11 on the list.
What happened to number 11?
Huyo nambari 11 alijaribu pia.
Answer. Number 11 on the list also attempted to flee, but they caught up with him.
Who are you referring to when you say they caught up with him?
Wavamizi.
Answer. I'm referring to the attackers.
What happened when they caught up with him?
Walimkatakata wakamtupa kwa gunia ndani.
Answer. They cut him into pieces and threw his remains into a bag.
What happened after that?
Wakatuita. Wakasema kujeni chukua maiti yenu.
Answer. They then called us and told us to come and pick up our body. They said, come and pick up your corpse.
What was the ethnicity of person number 11?
Ni Kikuyu.
Answer. A Kikuyu.
Did person number 11 in fact die?
Hakukufa.
Answer. No.
Which day of the violence did this happen, person number 11?
Nafikiri ilikuwa siku ya tatu.
Answer. I believe it was on the third day. Or the second.
How do you know about person number 11? Were you present when this happened?
Huyo nilikuwa hapo.
Answer. I was there.
Talking about person number 9, how do you know about person number 9? Were you present when that happened?
Nafikiri kama vile nilivyosema hapo awali.
Answer, as I said to you previously. I was an eyewitness to all of these events. And why was that? Well, because during the conflict, we attempted to salvage our belongings, but we did not manage to. So, I was an eyewitness to most of the events that occurred.
Your Honour, I note the time. I may have perhaps half an hour if we return back from lunch with your leave, if that's okay.
At some point, of course, you will let us know what happened to person number 11. As you can see, transcript has a witness saying he was cut up into pieces and his remains put in a bag. And then they got a phone call saying, come and pick up your corpse. And then you ask him a question, did person number 11 die? And he says no. So we would like to know where to go from there. We will adjourn now and come back at 1 o'clock. We'll take our 1 second. So we will be taking a 1 hour lunch break now, come back at 1 o'clock, but we will first bring down the blinds and let the witness out.